Welcome to this edition of Here's to Your Health. I'm your host, Josh Lane, and my guest is Adam Andrzejewski, who is the founder of OpenTheBooks.com. And Adam's reporting, he's a reporter, his findings have aired on ABC's Good Morning America, on ABC's World News Tonight, on the BBC, on C-SPAN, on Fox News, and on nearly every major media platform, including being published at the New York Times, USA Today, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal. Now, Adam has been a longtime contributor to Forbes magazine, I think contributing more than 200 articles, so that makes him a longtime contributor. But he actually lost his job at Forbes because he was pressured to stop his investigative reporting on Dr. Anthony Fauci, which revealed that should Dr. Fauci retire shortly, that he receives a $350,000 retirement package, which seems to me to be a legitimate thing to report, especially in a magazine such as Forbes, which is a business-oriented magazine. Adam Andrzejewski, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Well, thank you, Josh. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Very happy to have you on the show. And again, so you have a very long track record on all the influential media platforms discussing various things that you are busy reporting for the American public. So why was it that Forbes, where you had been a long-time contributor, I'm sure, no doubt, well-liked, why would simply reporting that Anthony Fauci is going to receive a retirement package of $350,000, which is a great deal of money, but why would that cost you your job?
Well, that is an open question. So we had found 14 months ago that Dr. Anthony Fauci, and I broke this in my column at Forbes, that he was the top paid, most highly compensated federal employee. I don't do this alone. I've got a team at OpenTheBooks.com of auditors, and we know how to dig, and we've been digging the Fauci financials. That, the best way to describe that is they're buried in a deep bunker over at the National Institutes of Health. Mm-hmm. When we would uncover things, I would publish them in my column at Forbes. It turned out these things were so sensitive that the National Institutes of Health, they loaded a big artillery shell in their gun. They fired it at the Forbes C-suite. Unfortunately, Forbes quickly folded, and my column was terminated.
I tell you, I'm actually a little surprised to hear that, because it seems to me that the salaries that public officials earn is a legitimate topic of concern, frankly. And the fact that Anthony Fauci has been in such an important position for, what is it? Is it 40 years, or it's more than 40 years? So he has a great deal of power. But it seems to me that the discussion of money is a very fair consideration.
Well, I think it is a fair consideration. But this was so sensitive to the National Institutes of Health that on a Sunday morning, 6 of their top executives, 2 directors of the National Institute of Health, 2 bureau chiefs, and 2 top public relations officers, they took time out from protecting the country during the pandemic to write a letter, like I said, on a Sunday morning to Forbes, who's been around for 100 years, basically expressing that, they didn't like Andrzejewski's reporting, and for Forbes to do something about it. Now, they didn't exactly say it that way. They couched everything in terms of a quote-unquote corrections email with no substantial corrections. So you had to read between the lines. But Forbes got the message, and within 24 hours, they told me I could no longer publish on Anthony Fauci.
All right, so our guest is the reporter, Adam Andrzejewski, who is the CEO, the founder of OpenTheBooks.com, whose findings have been reported and used on ABC's Good Morning America, ABC's World News Tonight, the BBC, C-SPAN, Fox News. So this is an important reporter. Now, let's talk about the money that Anthony Fauci and his wife earn. How much money does Anthony Fauci earn, and how much money does his wife earn?
So Dr. Fauci out-earns everybody at the federal level and makes $456,000 a year. What we also learned is that his wife, Christine Brady, who's the chief, she's the head of the department of the bioethics at National Institutes of Health. She's the top chief bioethicist there. she out-earns the vice president, and she makes $238,000 a year. So if you add the salaries of the two Faucis paid for by taxpayers, and if you tack on 30% for federal benefits each year, at taxpayer cost annually, they make north of $900,000.
Okay, that's real money. That's definitely real money. Okay, and so now I think it's interesting that people would know this. Now, I am a little surprised to hear they're earning that much money. I'm not super shocked, but I'm a little surprised. But why exactly is it the fact that he's been there for 40 years? Is it that he has that also does he make side money too on some of these patents?
Yes, he does make side money. So people will remember the Senate hearing in January, and it was Fauci's code red moment. He ended up calling U.S. Senator Roger Marshall out of Kansas a quote-unquote moron. It was one of the top news stories of the day.
Right.
Marshall was simply asking Fauci about his finances. He cited Forbes, which was my investigation published at Forbes through our organization at OpenTheBooks.com. Fauci melted down in the Senate hearing and on national television. This is just an example of, he doesn't like the oversight on his finances. When those disclosures were finally released, we went through them immediately, and I published the findings at Forbes that the two Faucis have a household net worth that rivals $11 million on their federal salaries, their royalties, investment gains, and other perks. In 2020, that amounted to nearly $1.8 million. And we also found that in February of 2021, Tony Fauci received $1 million prize from a foundation in Israel for, quote-unquote, speaking truth to power during the Trump administration. So, there's a lot of findings that we unearthed, and it's, since Dr. Fauci is not only the top paid, but the most visible, and nobody's influenced public health policy in this country more in the last 2 years, all of this oversight is critical.
Yes, I believe the oversight is critical. Our guest is Adam Andrzejewski, the reporter who broke the story on Forbes magazine about the salary and the perks of Anthony Fauci, and then who was let go by the magazine, and he'd worked for Forbes for 8 years. Now, I did notice that you've received a lot of positive press in the mainstream press. The New York Post, which is a pretty conservative daily, they actually did a nice little piece on you. It really didn't seem to attack you very much, slightly, but mostly they were kind of in your corner about your legitimacy of this reporting. And I also noticed that you're on Fox. You've been on Fox now a couple of times, and you've been treated pretty fairly there. So, are the reporters on your side?
So I think they should be. Transparency, we believe transparency revolutionizes United States public policy and politics. And every single journalist in the country used to believe that as well. So let's kind of walk through the pushback from NIH. So when we uncovered that Fauci was the top paid federal employee, people wanted to know why. And we filed Freedom of Information Act requests with NIH, for Fauci's job description, for his contract, for his ethics, financial, and conflict documents, for his royalties, and whether or not he has a hush agreement, a confidentiality agreement. And NIH produced virtually nothing for 10 months subject to that FOIA request. So we sued him in federal court. And since then, over a 5-month period, they have produced virtually nothing subject to our federal lawsuit. Then you had Fauci in the Senate hearing in January when he said that his financial information is public knowledge. And it just wasn't true. So he misled the nation in the Senate hearing. I called him out on it in my column at Forbes. I immediately put up, no, Fauci's financial information is not online. NIH should release it immediately. NIH came down hard on Forbes. Forbes came down hard on me. I told the truth. They pulled the plug.
Right. Our guest is Adam Andrzejewski, who's the CEO of OpenTheBooks.com, whose reporting at Forbes caused a controversy because he felt that we, the American people, have the right to know the salaries of the people who work in government, not elected, of course, who work in government and who do things that we should know about, and we need to know their salaries. Seems very fair. But it does seem to me, Adam, that I think people feel that we have a right to know the salaries, and that indeed this is going to make them seem much more suspect than if they had simply released the information and you had published it. People might have said, well, that's a lot of money, and maybe let it go. But now it does look like they're trying to cover up. And oftentimes it's the cover-up that really brings the politicians down.
Well, I agree, and I don't think Americans are going to begrudge a top doctor from earning a high salary.
Right.
In this country, we view success favorably. But since Tony Fauci is the top-paid federal employee, here's the point. He owes us a lot. And right now, he's treating all of us like a bunch of mushrooms, keeping us in the dark, watering us, and putting the fertilizer on us. Mm-hmm. You know what kind of fertilizer they fertilize mushrooms with?
Yes.
So I think that a long time ago, back in 2004, the United States government made a decision that Fauci was indispensable to the health and safety of this country and the ongoing concern of the United States of America. And the reason I think that is because one of the documents that NIH did release, they only released 58 pages. In our federal lawsuit, they admit they have 1,200 pages of Fauci financial documents. Every page could be a national news story. 1,200 pages.
Wow.
But in the 58 pages they did release, we unearthed a memo from 2004. It was a private memo and it's why he's the top-paid federal employee, because he got a permanent pay adjustment. Think of it as a permanent bonus for his biodefense work. So I think back in 2004, the United States government made the decision they wanted Fauci on the team. They didn't want him jumping to the pharmaceutical industry, and so they gave him this hook. That was codified publicly in 2008 with President George W. Bush, who turned around and gave Fauci the highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Okay, so Fauci's untouchable. Our organization, because he's the top paid, most visible, and he's affected U.S. health policy more than anybody else. He's been in the room over the last 2 years during the pandemic. We decided to give him oversight, but NIH protects Fauci, and they came down hard.
Right. They really seem to come down hard on you. Our guest is Adam Andrzejewski, the CEO of OpenTheBooks.com. On this important reporting. And again, he was an important reporter for Forbes for about 8 years. Adam, what's going to happen now as a result of this reporting?
So, our federal lawsuit is ongoing. So, incredibly, they owe us 60,000 pages, they admit, to Fauci's calendar entries and related documents in the 3 months before the pandemic and the 3 months after the pandemic. They owe us another 3,000 pages of line-by-line royalty payments from third-party payers to NIH scientists. Every single line of those 3,000 pages could be a potential conflict of interest. For instance, pharmaceutical companies to current NIH scientists who co-invented different products with the company. They owe us 1,200 pages of Fauci financials. So our oversight always was only just getting started. We were very proud that U.S. Senator Roger Marshall used our investigations in the Senate hearing to hold Fauci accountable. And you can't be America's top doctor if you're melting down in a Senate hearing, calling a U.S. Senator a moron on national television.
Right. Adam, our guest is Adam Andrzejewski, who is the CEO of OpenTheBooks.com. We have about a minute left. Please tell listeners of Here's to Your Health how they can contact you to find out more about your important work.
So just come to OpenTheBooks.com and sign up with your email address. And what that does is it puts you on our breaking news list as we issue all of these reports on Dr. Anthony Fauci and all the other 500 investigations that we're going to do this year on many topics across the entire local, state, and federal continuum. you'll be the first to know.
Wow, that sounds great. That sounds really very good. Our guest has been Adam Andrzejewski, the CEO of OpenTheBooks.com. And as Adam just told you, you can sign on for the newsletter at OpenTheBooks.com. And again, Adam's findings, you've read about them or heard about them on ABC's Good Morning America, on ABC's World News Tonight, on the BBC, on C-SPAN, on Fox News, and virtually every other major media outlet platform, including being published in the New York Times, USA Today, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal. This is Josh Lane. You're listening to Here's to Your Health. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health with Joshua Lane.